Welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast, where frontline sales leaders teach you how to build and scale an outbound sales team.
I think that the first step is get to know the industry. And you don't have to be a super expert in the industry. You can learn these things very quickly. And it kind of, to me, it goes back to first principles, which is know a lot. Understand basic business across all industries. So if you don't know basics of finance, you don't know basics of operations and revenue in and expenses out and things that the CEO cares about. There's a great book from Ram Charan that I remember from way early on in my career, which is, I think it's What the CEO Wants You to Know.
Okay.
Great book. And it's kind of the basics of business. Everybody should know it. I think all salespeople should know it. So I think at a general level, understand business. Secondarily, understand the market that your customer is in. So, my very first job, we were selling into oil and gas. I knew nothing about oil and gas. Downloaded a whole bunch of information from, I think it was SAP, which ultimately acquired them, which was, hey, here's our supply chain map of the industry. Here's how it breaks up. Here's what these different sub-component companies care about in this space. And they're different because they've got distribution or drilling or whatever. They've got different company types. So get to know a little bit, just enough that you can speak smartly about the industry, and then get to know that specific customer. So if it's customer X in industry Y, now you know a little bit about the industry, and now you should know pretty much everything about that customer. What are their press releases? What are they working on? What are their strategic priorities? And what's funny to me that a lot of people don't know and don't do is you can go to their website and download their annual report and look through and they'll tell you what their strategic priorities are. They'll say, in the next year, we commit to the board to do these 5 things. And in there, you'll find sub breakouts for, we're going to increase security, we're going to move to the cloud, we're going to do whatever it is that you care about. So it's kind of like understand business, understand the sector of your customer, understand your customer. Now, it sounds like a lot, and it is, but at that point, now you're potentially somebody who can bring some value to the table because now you also know your product and your industry. So if you go to have a conversation with somebody, you can say, hey, I know you're in this space, and I know you're a type of customer that has these concerns. We address those concerns, and we help you solve those problems. So suddenly they say, great, this person knows me and knows my general environment, my context, and also knows about this other thing that I want to buy, like cloud computing or data center security or whatever that is.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. To recap for those of you listening, the kind of things that you need to look at to basically give yourself this foundation of knowing everything, as Troy says, before you even prospect. You need to know your industry, you need to know your market, and then after you know those 2 things, then you need to know the customer, know what their specific kind of priorities are, their strategic priorities. You can download that from their website. In often cases you can, and know what problems those specific businesses have in this market. And that's when you can then create really relevant messaging to do with kind of your product when you reach out to them. So
exactly.
Troy, with all this research that you're doing, where do you put all this information down so that you can then use it later?
So I'm a voracious note taker. So I tend to just capture as much of this stuff as I can in a couple of pages in a Word doc or something, or whatever notes app you use. I'm not a big fan of CRMs. I think most people aren't. I generally don't put all this stuff into CRMs. I find them too laborious and time consuming, which is probably not something you're supposed to say on a sales call. So I will just tend to build my own document, and I'll share that. I have a kind of a principle which I've learned from a lot of military folks. I'm civilian, but I've learned from a lot of military folks. And the principle is, make sure everybody has the same situational awareness. They all understand the context. They understand the customer. So if I do that research, and I almost always do, I'll then share that to the entire sales team. So everybody in the team, including the partners, we all get who this customer is, what their problems are, what their priorities are, and we can all have that context when we're having the conversation with the customer.